Sheffield United would be the best job for Chris Wilder if they were playing in the Northern Premier League. And he was offered the Real Madrid job.
Producer Seb kindly informs me that apparently on our pre-season preview we only talked about Derby for 40 seconds.
I'm going to have to call you out a bit there, Simon.
What was wrong? What's wrong with my notes?
The imposter is dead. Long live the king.
Hello guys, welcome back to The Sportsman Untitled. I'm Simon Lillibury and I'm joined today by Justin Peach and Gab Sutton. We're going to run through some incredible championship action this weekend. We're going to look at Derby County in focus. We're also going to look at the championship fixtures coming up this weekend. But there's been our first championship sacking of the season. It's Sheffield United. They've sacked Ruben Selles after just 5 games in charge. And we've had a message from Ollie Mann, our resident Sheffield United fan. Here's what he had to say.
Hi everyone. So yes, the news has finally broken. Sheffield United have sacked Ruben Selles. I was on the show a couple of weeks ago debating with Gab and Simon, and it was undoubtedly the only decision that the owners could make. Obviously, since we did that show, there's been yet another embarrassment on Friday night away at Ipswich, and ultimately the straw that broke the camel's back. And I don't really think anyone can argue it was undeserved. It's been an experiment that has just been a complete and utter failure. You know, CS was not set up to succeed. From a PR perspective, his appointment was a disaster, obviously coming in replacing Wilder after such a successful season last year. Sayers himself has not helped in any way, shape or form. Every training session that the players had with the manager, with the coaching team, just seemed to make them worse. And that brings us, of course, to the rumours of who is up next. And that man is Chris Wilder. He will be returning for his 3rd stint in charge of United. And it's a really weird one. It's interesting because for me and for a lot of United fans, we have to at some point move away from being Chris Wilder Football Club. We can't forever just keep rolling the dice and backing the same old horse. That's not going to work. It's a law of diminishing returns. However, despite the fact that long term we probably do need to move on, short term this feels like the perfect appointment. In all honesty, what this does is it brings the fans back together. Whether you love him or you hate him, you know he's going to demand a minimum level of performance from this team, from these players, and he will undoubtedly improve us. To have any chance of saving this season, I would argue he is the best man for the job to come in and save 25-26 for Sheffield United. This has to be the last time. Chris Wilder can't be counted upon to go again and again and again. This cannot be another unfinished symphony for Sheffield United and Chris Wilder. This one has to bring an end to the story. For good or for bad, he could take us to the Premier League. He could have us stable there and ride off into the sunset on a white horse, or it could all go drastically wrong. Either way, it has to happen naturally. This cannot be brought to a premature end. Let's let it finish properly. Let's have a true end to the story of Chris Wilder and Sheffield United. But for now, it's excitement. We will be better in the next few weeks. We will have a better season ahead of us. And, well, what else is there to say? The imposter is dead. Long live the king.
So Gab, he said, the imposter is dead. Long live the king. I mean, 5 games. We kind of argued in favour of keeping Selles when we had Ollie on the show. He's now gone. What do you make of that?
I think Friday night at Ipswich had to count for something. I think Sheffield United, it's very easy to say it's still early in the season. And I've always been in favour of arguing for more time for managers and head coaches. But I think the situation that Sheffield United are in and the ambitions of the club mean that they couldn't afford to have let it get into 10 games this kind of start. And I think that if Sheffield United had gone to Ipswich and produced a display of defensive resolve and maybe ground out a draw, or even lost 1-0, but you felt like they're creating chances and you can start to see something, I think that might have been acceptable in terms of the argument for giving him more time, the Charlton game coming up. But I just think that after another humiliation, I think the question will be how much longer can Sheffield United let this go on for, and the Sheffield United board have provided their answer.
Yeah, absolutely. And Justin, it felt like Sheffield United a few times this season have kind of collapsed when they've gone behind. I mean, that Ipswich game was a perfect indication of that. Is that a big reason why he's had to go?
Well, it's clearly that a case of the players. I wouldn't say weren't playing for Sayers, but it was clearly a case of them not quite pushing as hard as they were. When we talk about defensive problems and collapsing in certain moments of games, the Bristol City game was one of them. They kept repeating the same mistakes. Then you look at some of the goals they conceded against Ipswich, the Philogene left-footed drive. These are easily avoidable situations. And whilst I'm not going to say they weren't playing for Sayers, it's clearly the message from Sayers wasn't getting through to the players. It's quite strange because Sayers at Hull, for example, his team was quite defensively sound.
Yeah.
Weren't creating a lot of chances, but they're defensively very sound. We've not seen that with Sheffield United. Very good defensive team last season. Where's it all gone? It's same blueprint of players, but clearly the messaging's just not there.
Got my stats sheet in front of us here. Earliest Championship manager ever in terms of games to be sacked. 5 is all it took. We had Darko Milanic at Leeds, who took 6. Dave Hockaday again at Leeds took 6. Bit of a pattern going there. What were the Sheffield United board trying to do, though? I felt like they made the decision to get rid of Wilder and move forward in this new attacking brand of football. To throw that out the window after 6 games, and it looks like potentially go back to Wilder, it's just a bit of mismatched thinking.
Yeah, I think a big attraction for them at the time would have been Selles' coaching background, and what I love is that he'd started coaching. I think it was in Valencia, local teams, university football, and with no playing career to speak of in senior terms, worked his way up over 20 years. And I think to be able to do that, to go from coaching your local team in Valencia to managing Sheffield United, you've got to be a very good coach. So he's clearly got some qualities, but I think with Ruben Selles, he needs the right ingredients, the right group of players who can do what he wants. When he was very successful at Reading, he had a really young group of players who were full of energy and could go and do exactly what he wanted. Now, do I think that with the right personnel at Sheffield United, he could have been successful? Yes, I actually do, because I do think he's a good coach with the right ingredients. But it's what's clear to see is that he's not very adaptable when you've got a different group of different ingredients to work with. And the first goal that Sheffield United conceded at Ipswich, where it was a misplaced pass and all of a sudden their whole defensive unit was out of place. You can't sort of allow for that as a manager. So I think from Ruben Selles' point of view, he's got some qualities, but he's also going to need to show his more adaptable side, because you're not always going to have exactly the personnel that you want to work with.
Absolutely. And Ollie said on that clip, Justin, that Wilder, they need to move away from him at some point. But he also could be a short-term fix that works this season. Where do you sit on that? If he is the man to come in, it's not confirmed yet.
Well, yeah, that's the case. I worry a little bit with the decision-making upstairs in Sheffield United, because it's clear they're going down one avenue with the Sayers appointment, head coach, AI recruitment, however you want to coin that. They never really committed to that. And then going straight back to Chris Wilder, or running back to him, with the tails between their legs, if you like, I almost ask, what is the point? You either continue down this route and get a manager in who's a little bit more flexible than Sayers, as Gab was alluding to, or you essentially tear up the blueprint you were trying to go towards in the summer and go back to Chris Wilder, because he left. One of the reasons that was cited of him leaving was disagreements over recruitment and all of that, all of that stuff. So I do think they should move away from Chris Wilder. But at the minute, they do need results, and Chris Wilder, you can argue, will deliver them.
I do wonder the sustainability of bringing Wilder back, because as much as it certainly gives them the best chance of things clicking into place right now, because there'll be a kind of muscle memory of the way Wilder worked, and the players will be able to remember that. The long term, Wilder and the board don't see eye to eye with. The board want to go in one direction, Wilder wants to go in another. How sustainable is that relationship, not between Wilder and Sheffield United, but between Wilder and the board?
Do you think it's the right decision then for Wilder to actually go back? Obviously, I see it as it's almost the best job he can get. It just happens to be his boy club, etc., etc.
Sure.
I don't see a Premier League team going for him, and I don't see another top-end Championship team going for it. So is that why he's said, I'll go back, best job for me?
I think Sheffield United would be the best job for Chris Wilder if they were playing in the Northern Premier League and he was offered the Real Madrid job.
Selles didn't do that badly, Gab.
No, I know, but I think Chris Wilder is just such a devoted blade. That club is everything to him. I think he would take the job if they wanted him in any circumstances.
We'll have to see how he gets on there. Very excited to see that. We're going to now look at the weekend fixtures. Preston 2, Borough 2, Justin. Borough's unbeaten start continues. A very late equaliser. Interesting moment for Rob Edwards, though, wasn't there, in kind of the post-match press conference, where he Kind of had a little dig at the Borough fans for booing Morgan Whittaker, right?
Yeah, it's quite. I mean, Rob Edwards, it highlights some of the key things that he's got as a coach. He's very good at recognising the human element of a footballer, which as pundits or as fans we can look over quite quickly. And I think that goes to show just how much he's embedded himself very quickly at Middlesbrough. Obviously, the results they're probably going to help in his favour somewhat in swaying Borough fans to be a little bit more supportive of individuals. But I think it's a massive thumbs up for Rob Edwards for being brave enough to at least speak out to supporters who were booing one of their own.
I'm going to have to call you out of it there, Simon.
Oh, what have I done wrong? What's wrong with my notes?
I think calling it a dig at the fans, I don't think that's necessarily accurate. I think it's more that he was, protecting his players. And actually, I think Rob Edwards did that really well because I think he's got a great relationship with the fans. He's very good at building connections with people. I think that he felt disappointed with that particular action, but I don't think he's like... I think he loves the Middlesbrough fans, but he just felt that particular thing he wasn't happy with.
I didn't even realise I'd said that. Thanks for calling me out, Gab. I tell you what, I do like he referred to it as a family, and I quite like that.
Yeah.
That sums him up, doesn't it? As a
Absolutely,
manager, bringing everyone together, results going very well on the
100%.
pitch as well. Gab, I'll come to you for Stoke 1, Birmingham 0.
Sure.
Is there 0 shots on target, right, for Birmingham this weekend? Is there a potential we've overrated what they can achieve this season? Is it too early to say that? Because this is arguably the most disappointing performance so far.
Yeah, for sure. I think there was a lot of optimism after the performance against Ipswich on opening night, the comeback against Blackburn, the late fight back there, and the win against Oxford. But I think what we've seen, certainly in the Leicester game and the Stoke game to an extent, is it is a different beast coming up to the Championship. And you look at somebody like Alex Cochrane, who was absolutely flawless last season in League One. And I really struggle to think of any time where he got beaten 1v1 by an opposition winger. But when you're coming up into the Championship and you're up against Million Manhoof rather than somebody in League One, it is a little bit different. And Manhoof was a real handful for Alex Cochrane on Saturday. So again, I think it shows that there's different challenges that come with stepping up to the Championship. The physicality of the league is different, the intensity of the league is different, and Birmingham are going to need to find a way to implement their ideas to that level. I think they need to go back to a front two. I think we saw against Ipswich on opening night that Jay Stansfield and Kyogo Furuhashi have a great understanding. I'd like to see that again because I think we carry more of a threat with the front two, and I'm not sure how Stansfield fares as that lone striker.
Absolutely, and a word on Stoke. Mark Robins, the train rolls on, doesn't it? At Stoke, another good performance. Brilliant so far, absolutely brilliant.
Well, I think what impressed me the most is the fact that at the Bet365 Stadium, the intensity and the atmosphere was electric. It was great, and we've not seen that from a Stoke side for such a long time because of the nature of managerial appointments, changing direction of the club and upstairs movement.
Finishing 16th in the league.
Yes, and the mid-table mediocrity or lower mid-table mediocrity they found themselves in over the years. But I think what Mark Robins is very good, as as a Coventry fan, is redefining a club culture and sparking it into life. And I think we're seeing those embers really come to fruition. It wasn't a textbook display. It was the first 25 minutes from a Stoke point of view were brilliant in this game. But what they did thereafter was really nullify Birmingham. And despite Birmingham being relatively blunt of late, they do still have a lot of talented players. And I think what Stoke have done in the past is allow individuals to really overwhelm them. And they've not been doing that this season. They've been very, very good at managing games. And that's something that you can be really impressed with from a Stoke point of view.
I think John Walters and Stoke, the board on there, deserve a bit of credit for this because for so long they've kind of gone for head coaches, and I think they did really well, Gab, by addressing the fact that they actually needed a manager, which is exactly what Mark Robins is. He wants to do a bit of everything. He wants to oversee the entire club and see it as a bit of a project rather than an on-pitch kind of coach, which incidentally is what Coventry have got now. It's interesting that they went in that direction and now it seems to be paying off.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think certainly Mark Robins has done great in terms of just simplifying things a little bit, because I think that's what Stoke City need. It's going back to doing the basics well. And one player that I wanted to look at with Stoke City, because they were very good at being very compact and then hitting teams with the intensity and that pace of Manhoof. And I wanted to bring up Bosun Lawal because he had a loan spell at Fleetwood a couple of seasons ago from Celtic, and came through as a defender, and Charlie Adam at Fleetwood converted him into a midfielder, and he really sort of thrived in that role as a ball carrier, and really stood out from that perspective. So it's helped him in a way since he's moved back to centre half with Stoke City, that ability to bring the ball out from the defence, and having had that freedom, that contributes to his performances. So I think Stoke have got a nice blend of youth and experience. You look at the talents like Bosun Lawal, like Junior Chamadou, who real athletes, and then the experience of Aaron Cresswell and Ben Pearson. We've seen him before be one of the best ball winners, if you like, in the Championship with Preston North End. Maybe we're seeing a bit of a renaissance for Ben Pearson. Million Man, who I mentioned earlier. Divin Mabama, I think, is a really exciting prospect as well, to put him in that category. So, a positive afternoon for Stoke City.
And Sorba Thomas's set pieces as well, of course. He's been fantastic. Quick word on quite an underwhelming South Coast derby, I think, in the end, after all the build-up, 0-0. Underwhelming is probably the word I'd use for Southampton this season so far as well.
Certainly so far. I know Will still came into the Championship with a lot of lights and fireworks coming in, because everyone knows the PR story around Will Still. So he's trying to obviously negate a path for himself. But I think what you've got there is a Southampton team who are very much used to losing in the Premier League, and that's a very hard transition culturally to get out of. Obviously, that's not been the case in the Championship so far, but what we're seeing is Will still really struggle to implement a real good style of football. It was possession for possession's sake at times against Portsmouth, and that's been a running theme. Defensively, they make the same errors quite consistently. They pass the ball inside, they lose it, they get countered. I know they kept a clean sheet against Portsmouth, but if there was going to be a winner in this derby, it probably would have been Portsmouth. The game lasted another 20-25 minutes. We're still in Southampton. I'm expecting a little bit more. He's going to be under pressure to deliver something over the next few weeks, but there are certainly foundations being laid, but I'm not overly convinced by them so far.
He showed a bit of flexibility, didn't he, going to the back 4-2-3-1, and I was just frustrated by Finn Azaz, because we've seen how good he can be, but his movement just wasn't there, and the link up with Cameron Archer just seemed to be long balls into him. It's a very disjointed performance on the whole, and I want more from Southampton.
Yeah, there's an interesting debate with Finn Azaz, because his numbers are great at Championship level, but there is an argument that he goes quiet in big games. Lots of players are going to go quiet in big games, especially in derby games, but Finn Azaz is one of those players that you've got to do a little bit more to get out of it in those scenarios. So, and with that, the tactical nod to get the ball into Cameron Archer along was a weird one.
A nice firm handshake at the end between the two managers as well, which Will still didn't quite enjoy. Gab, Watford 0, Blackburn 1. I've written this game down to discuss, because you see Blackburn, you see the ongoing ownership issues, you see them sell Dom Hyam on deadline day. You look at their back four and you have a few question marks.
Sure.
Then they go and beat Watford away from home, keep a clean sheet, and play really, really well.
Yeah, well, it's an interesting contrast with Blackburn Rovers, because on the one hand, they've gone with very continental recruitment policy. You think of players like Sidney Tavares and Gudjonsson, two Japanese players linking up for a goal in English football for the first time ever. So it shows that market is, the Asian market is becoming very popular in English football at the moment. And yet also at centre half, they've got Scott Wharton at the back, who's been there for a long time, and Hayden Carter as well. So they've got that homegrown feel as well. And I think those defensive foundations are really encouraging for Blackburn Rovers, and hopefully that can be a partnership for Valérien Ismaël to really build on. And then Todd Cantwell, I think, is just miles too good for the Championship. He's probably found himself in the wrong place at times in previous years. I think he's found a home for himself at Blackburn Rovers.
I love that he's just got the captain's armband and just driven on with it.
Yeah,
it's really stepped up.
I wouldn't have had him down as a captain, Simon, but he seems to have really risen to that challenge.
It's almost like Sunday League, where you just go, I'll give the best player the captain's armband, and it just makes them better. So I think he's been absolutely fantastic. We'll discuss, if you're a Coventry fan or a Leicester fan, Sportsman Untitled Extra coming on Friday is going to preview Coventry versus Leicester Coventry, so at the King Power. So stay tuned and subscribe if you want to see that one. The other discussion we've got to have, guys, is a bit of news that came out last week. The playoffs could be extended, a report by The Athletic, Justin, down to 8th place, where there'd be a playoff eliminator, etc., etc. What are your thoughts on it?
It's one of those where I'm somewhat on the fence with it, because it's like, okay, more playoffs. We all want more playoffs. We love the playoffs. This give us more. But also, 8th place being up for promotion.
It's a third of the league.
Yeah,
you only have to finish in the top third. But that can't be right.
Well, exactly. But then you get down to sort of 12th, where they're probably going to be within 3 or 4 points of 8th place. It's like, so 12th going into game 45 has a realistic chance of actually getting into the Premier League. I don't know where I sit with it. I know it's going to eliminate dead rubbers in game week 43, 44, 45, etc. But is that the nature of the Championship? I don't know.
I think it brings us to a big question, doesn't it, Justin, about what is football for? Is this football for entertainment value, for the excitement, for the drama, or is football about sporting meritocracy, where if you finish higher, you get these rewards? And I think what I like about the playoffs is that it kind of has a blend of the two, in that if you finish in the top 6, you've got a chance of promotion. I do like the eliminator system that they actually have in the National League. They've had it there for a few years now. And partly because it's more teams, so it keeps that league exciting for longer, certainly for the mid-table teams. And also partly because you don't have those first legs that are a bit of a, Yeah, I like to have games in the playoffs that, something's going to happen, whether it's one team that's staying in the league as a result of each game that you watch, because I feel like that adds something. So from the point of view of entertainment value, I would be in favour of the eliminator system. From the point of view of sporting meritocracy, I would be against it. And I'm going to need to pick the splinters out of my backside.
I'll get off the fence, because I think this is a terrible, terrible idea. Has a team that's finished in 8th in the Championship that we've watched over the last few years, have you ever thought, that team deserves to be in the Premier League?
Yeah.
Absolutely not. There's no way that any team finishing 8th should be.
It's hard enough.
You've not been good enough.
It's hard enough when you've won the league with the Championship to stay in the Premier League, let alone if you finished. So yeah,
a third of the way down the league.
But can you imagine the meltdown if 8th place Millwall beat Sheffield United, who finished with 90 points in the playoff final? Though that's really good.
Listen, Coventry are trying to win the playoffs. They don't want to lose to even more teams. We can't be having that. No, I think we'll see what happens with it. I can see the benefits, but ultimately, I think it's a bad idea. Just for a meritocracy. A great word, Gab. I'll take your word on that. Right, we're going to have a look at Derby County in focus now, because obviously, Justin, you're a Derby County fan. It's been an interesting start to the season, hasn't it? Underperforming?
Definitely underperforming, yeah. I think when you consider the fact that there's been a wholesale changes recruitment-wise, that's been needed because we had a League One squad last season. It needed refreshing, and it's been refreshed. Most of those players came in with injuries and knocks. Andy Vyman came in with a knock. Patrick Agyman had a hernia, so he's been coming back to full fitness. Bobby Clark came in on loan. He's been regaining his fitness as well, and there are several others. Owen Beck's still currently out. So it's been a case of them slowly being drip-fed into the squad. So that's going to bring about a lot of problems in itself. But also, I think even with the players that are out at the moment, I still come away a little bit disappointed, just because of the amount of chances Derby have been conceding over the first 5 games of the season.
I think that's the key point, isn't it, Gal? And obviously the result this weekend kind of puts a bullet in that point, because they've gone and won away 1-0. But so far this season, they've been very unlike what we expected John Eustace team to be.
Yeah, I think definitely the 1-0 win at West Brom was a step forward because of the solidity. They really limited West Brom to very few chances in that game. So that would be the big step forward in terms of progress from the first few games. I still have a lot of faith that John Eustace is going to be the one to take Derby forward, because I think he's a fantastic Championship manager. But I'm just wondering, Justin, if you think some of the forward additions coming back is going to make a difference to your efforts, maybe in the more attacking sense.
It certainly should do. I think Bobby Clark actually being as a number 10 is going to get a lot. I don't know how long this 5 at the back is going to last, just because I think on the balance of keeping it defensively solid, it's necessary. But can Craig Forsyth play 46 games at the age of 53? I don't think he can.
He can. They might not all be very good, though.
Agyman to come back, though, is going to make a difference.
Yeah, he came on against West Brom, technically got the assist for Andy Vyman's winner. It was a strange flick on which Andy Vyman got on the end of, and obviously got the ball in. And I think he can be dangerous. Ben Brereton Diaz is the player getting overlooked. Obviously, him coming in on loan, I think he's good for double figures this season. That's going to be an interesting one. It's just, I don't know how it's all going to knit together. We've not seen it yet, because obviously these players, a couple of them came in late in the transfer window. Some of them have been injured. Then we've had the international break. So I think the next 4 weeks are going to tell us how that attack is actually going to line up, because Derby have been defending for their lives over the past few games. They've had a hard couple of games, mind you. I mean, West Brom away is a difficult one. But given Derby's record against West Brom, it was a guaranteed 3 points. We'll put that one out there. But I think it's the next 3 or 4 weeks are going to tell us a lot about this Derby team. I mean, Colton Morris has been fantastic. Max Johnston's come in and looked really sharp against Ipswich, and obviously West Brom as well. So there's a lot that needs to be done. Defensively got to improve, but also going forwards, got to impose themselves in games a little bit more as well.
I think Carl Morris is the perfect Derby signing. I don't know why that fits so well, but it does. And he's just the player, the striker in the Championship you just hate coming up against. He felt like he's been the perfect fit?
He's certainly a nuisance, but he adds a physical threat. I know he's probably lost a half a yard of pace over the past couple of years, but we all age, so it's always going to happen to us all, isn't it? But I think with that, he's looked dangerous. He's looked very dangerous. The goals that he has scored, aside from the penalties, he's got ahead of his markers and got his toe on the end of it, etc. He's a sharp forward, and probably the most complete striker Derby have had, I think, probably since Chris Martin. Also a CM9, worth pointing out. But he's one that I look at this season and I go, I think if in the right team he can get Golden Boot. It's just whether or not they create enough chances for him at Derby.
Yeah, absolutely. Gab, I want to talk to you about Derby's expectations this season, because I was very positive on the fact that I think I had them 8th in my 1-24, somewhere up there.
Yeah.
Because of John Eustace, pretty much. How are you feeling about their expectations so far, and where did you have them in your mind?
Yeah, they were mid-table. Probably wouldn't move too far away from that, despite a disappointing start. I still feel that in terms of... It wouldn't surprise me if they had a good one-off season under John Eustace, because I think he's a top Championship manager, as I mentioned. But I think in terms of sustainable progress for Derby County, I do wonder whether new investment's going to be needed. And I wanted to pick Justin's brain on this, because it felt like David Clowes was a reluctant owner when he stepped in 2020, basically to save the club. And I'm sure he's grown with that, and he's sort of grown into the role. But I still look at it and I think, for Derby County to reach that next level, there's going to be a bit more fresh capital coming in.
There's a lot of clubs that fall into that category. Bristol City are one of them. I know they've been linked with a takeover recently, but there are a lot of clubs that are in that in-between scenario. Things are a little bit more complex with Derby because of the recent administration. But I think what we've seen this summer is a complete change in recruitment strategy, where with Paul Warne, it's been, rightly so with budget and whatnot, but it's been free transfers, 28, 29 years old, those sorts of players who aren't going to get you further than mid-table at the very best, whereas the likes of Max Johnston, who's come in, obviously Patrick Agyman, they're of an age profile that they're going to grow, and ultimately they're going to be sold on for significantly more than what they've been brought for, as long as they keep progressing. And I think John Eustace is a coach who's going to do that. So I actually think the recruitment strategy this summer set Derby up very well for the next couple of years, because not only do they have really good assets to sell into in 3 years' time, but they've also got quality players to come in and help that club perform and get them further up the table. But you are right. Any club in the Championship needs investment if they're going to reach that next level.
And producer Seb kindly informs me that apparently on our pre-season preview, we only talked about Derby for 40 seconds. And I have to say, to defend myself, I think it was me doing all the talking for that time. But why did we talk about them so little, Justin? Are they boring? What's gone wrong?
I think there's an expectation with Derby because of John Eustace, because of what he did for Blackburn last season, and then because of obviously steered Derby away from relegation trouble, that he's just going to come in and have some form of success, whether that be a top half finish, a skirmish with the playoffs. Yeah, it's the same with my co-host on the Second Tier podcast, Ryan. He expects Derby to be in the top 6 because there's been a raft of investment, but mainly because of John Eustace. I'm the more pessimist of the two, and generally a very pessimist Derby fan, but there's a lot more to it than that. But I think with John Eustace and the success he's had in the Championship, there's just an expectation that he's going to deliver top half. And I think that's probably where we all get a little bit complacent and just, that expectation comes in. But the Championship's a little bit more nuanced than that, as we know. So I don't think they're boring. It's just everyone expects with John Eustace and expects good things, which is positive, but there's a little bit more to it.
To finish off, where are your expectations at right now? If you had to give us a predicted finish, how are you feeling about it?
Mid-table. I think mid-table. I think what we're seeing now is
that top half or not?
Yeah, I'd say 12th. Technically top half.
Technically.
But I think with it takes Matt Clark getting injured. We know his injury record at Borough was not great for him. Not his fault at all. But if he gets injured, then they're in trouble. We've got Sondre Langas coming back in, but your backup's Danny Bart, which hasn't been great. And you've got Dion Sanderson, who I think only really plays well in a back three.
I mean, I think Bart in the middle of a back three in the right setup can actually be a good championship defender, I think, because he can have balls out of the box and lead people.
I think
I don't think Deion Sanderson's good enough.
I think as a right-sided centre half where you can mask some of his weaknesses, he can do a job, and he's looked quite solid since a couple of disastrous opening games in his Derby career. But I think Derby going to a back three, you lose a lot of that attacking potential that we signed this summer. It almost becomes a little bit redundant and pointless because Derby haven't recruited vastly defensively other than Owen Beck and Danny Bart and Deion Sanderson and obviously Max Johnston. But you need to refresh the flanks anyway. So I think going to a 4-2-3-1 eventually will be the goal for John Eustace. And I think when they do that, great. If they get injuries defensively, then I start to panic a little bit.
Absolutely. Thanks very much for that insight into Derby County. I'm going to plug Friday's Sportsman Extra, the Coventry versus Leicester preview once again. Make sure you like and subscribe to the channel for weekly EFL Championship content as well. But, boys, I've got a question of the week for you, which I'm going to surprise you with because it's not on the notes. Which current Championship manager, and we're not including Chris Wilder in this, do you think would do the best job and get the most out of this Sheffield United squad? I mean, it's a good squad. It's got Gus Hamer in it. It's got Jaffet Tanganga in it. Sidney Peck, Tyrese Campbell. This is a really good Championship squad. And I'll throw a name out there to start you off, give you a bit of thinking time. I'd like to see John Messina.
Yeah.
Is that what you're going to go for?
Yeah.
Go on, Justin. Have it. Why?
I think this Blades team needs to play a 4-2-3-1. That's the you got Callum O'Hare in that number 10, and then you've got two flanks basically, which as we know with John Mousinho, he gets a lot out of the wide areas, and also plays number 9. I think Tom Cannon needs a number 10 in around him because as we saw against Ipswich, very isolated player. He's just such an electric player inside the box. Get the ball and crosses into him, he's going to get on the end of it. And what does Colby Bishop do under John Mousinho? He gets on the end of on the end of crosses. Midfield balance worries me a little bit because I think Sidney Peck and Gus Harmer, I don't like the balance of it. It needs a Sidney Peck and a Vinny Sosa or a Gus Harmer and a Vinny
Matos
Sosa.
maybe.
But I don't know if I thought Matos was quite weak for one or two of the goals that Ipswich scored. So I think they were hoping that he was going to be the Caesar replacement, but I don't think he's the same player. So.
But yeah, I was going to say with John Mousinho, what we saw last season is he had to constantly adapt. Midfield got picked up injuries. Defensively, I don't know how many defensive combinations they had in terms of personnel, but it was ridiculous. But they kept adapting and they were relatively solid. And what we saw with certain players is they vastly performed well beyond their expectations, and that's what the Sheffield United team needs.
How about for you, Gab?
Mark Robbins for me. I think just that simplicity that he can bring in terms of stripping everything back and going back to basics and building from there. My notes are slipping. I'm so passionate about this. My notes are slipping.
The Hamer and O'Hare link up again.
Exactly, yeah, precisely. So I think there's that angle as well. But again, I think Sheffield United need to establish some defensive foundations before they can start to move up the table.
Almost in a wilder mould, isn't it? Do you think they need to go manager now rather than head coach Selles? Would you suggest that, or is that too much?
I think so. I think the managers are coming back into fashion in football. I don't know what you guys think about this, but it feels like we've had an era where the it's been about head coaches, and clubs have often gone that. But actually now I think clubs are maybe seeing the value of experience. I feel like we're coming into that era in football.
Yeah, I've always been a big proponent of managers in general rather than head coaches, because if your club is smooth and running well and everything in the background's in the right place, it's easy to get a head coach and then be able to replace them if things go wrong. If you're in a bit of trouble, you want a manager, right?
Yeah.
Well, I think that's it. If your club's well run and the sporting director, technical director, however you want to call it, director of football is in place and they've been in place for a couple of years, then sure, head coach strategies is certainly the one to go down. Because clubs need that solidity, they need that consistency. But if you've got a director of football coming in the summer and then a head coach, that's where your problems lie, because that relationship needs to develop as well. So I certainly think there's value in a manager, but I think with that it just comes down to where you're at as a club. That's it. Like Sheffield United, for me, have shot themselves in the foot. I know there've been rumours as well of them flirting with the idea of having a sporting director, which I can't imagine will go down well with Chris Wilder. But like I said, I mean, we've seen different trends come back this summer. Big number 9s have been signed left, right and centre. Pacey wingers have been signed left, right and centre. Long throws are back as well. We're seeing 2005 again, and actually I'm all for it.
Now it's time for us to preview 3 games that I've selected for the weekend. I'm going to start on Friday night, where Middlesbrough host West Bromwich Albion live on Sky Sports. Gab, should be quite a good game. West Brom obviously lost their unbeaten record under Ryan Mason. Borough very, very strong right now. Who are you leaning towards this one?
Well, one thing I'm quite curious about is West Brom. They've played well away from home. They're actually struggling to create chances at home. And I think, there's an argument that Orne Hegebo is really good for them away from home because he's a very physical, industrious centre-forward. At home, I think a lot of Albion fans are hoping for Josh Madger to be playing. But I think away from home, Ryan Mason's team have got some of the tools required to dig out a result. So I'm fancying, I'm going to go for a 1-0 West Bromwich Albion away win. Bit of a surprise result.
Ending. Can you see Borough losing their unbeaten run?
I can't at the moment. I think with West Brom is the games have been very tight. Every single game they play has been very tight. It's been decided on a moment. We saw it at the weekend with Andy Weimann for Derby against them. And I think with Middlesbrough is what really excited me at the weekend is I know it was a 2-2 draw. Preston's home record's great, so it's always going to be a difficult place to go and get a result. But importantly, they fought back from 2 goals down. Fought back twice, I should say. And I think that's such an important characteristic, especially early on in the season under a new manager. I know they've won 4 games. Previous to that, they've done really well. Winning mentality there, but that's that attitude that you've got to instill in your team early on. And I think that's going to help a lot. Whereas I think with West Brom, they're still finding their way through with Ryan Mason. I've been impressed with him, probably been impressed with him more than I have with Middlesbrough, but the Derby game told me a lot about West Brom, whereas Middlesbrough put Preston there. Learn more about Borough in that game.
I think the Riverside, when it's bouncing as well, is a really good place to play football. So I'll probably lean towards a home win. I'll go for a 2-0, I think. Justin, what you saying on this?
I'll go 1-0. I think it'll be tight and edgy again.
1-0 home win. 2 teams we haven't talked about yet on this episode. Norwich City take on Wrexham Saturday, 3 p.m. Justin, I am getting increasingly concerned about the way Wrexham are defending.
Yeah, against QPR they were a bit of a mess. I don't think they can defend as any deeper than they could possibly do. They got exploited a hell of a lot against QPR with the pacing behind. So Conor Cody, I don't know if he can sit on the goalkeeper's toes just to defend, because that's what they're going to have to do. It's quite scary how many chances they are conceding. It is quite frightening, especially because I think their run of games other than Southampton hasn't been difficult. I know they won away at Millwall, but they were hammered against Millwall. It was one of those smash and grab scenarios which you do need in the Championship, but it's not sustainable as we're seeing now. And I know they recruited heavily in the summer. Just expect a little bit more to come from them. Unfortunately, you're going to be hit over the head with it. You spend a lot of money, people expect a lot more. And with Wrexham and how they're defending, it's a big worry.
Kind of that step up you mentioned about Birmingham finding it maybe slightly tougher as well. Wrexham feel like they've maybe been hit over the head with a hammer a few times this season in terms of what they've experienced from an attacking perspective. Yeah,
I think there's a certain expectation from the board. I don't know about the fan base because, they were used to being mid-table in the National League 5 years ago. So I think much of the fan base are kind of enjoying the journey. But I think from the board's point of view, they're very ambitious. And one of the reasons why I'm cautious about Wrexham this season is if you just use the players that they've recruited for the lower divisions, I don't think they're going to be quite up to the level that they're hoping for at Championship level. But if you just completely overhaul the squad and they've got what feels like a new look starting 11 almost in certain places, albeit players like Dobson are remaining, that takes some time to sort of really develop that understanding. And I think that's one of the challenges the Wrexham are having. But I also feel with a Phil Parkinson side, they're never going to be the most glamorous to watch going forward. So you want to feel like there's some solid defensive foundations for them to build on. And at the moment, that's not something Wrexham are benefiting from. So that has to change.
Yeah, I think it's an expectations thing as well, especially from the ownership. How much do they want to be lurking near the relegation zone for how long until they maybe have to make quite a difficult decision?
Sure.
Or are they happy to just try and survive this season and build on it? We'll have to wait and see. Norwich City, what are your thoughts on them so far, Justin? Because this weekend I watched the most time wasting I've ever seen in a Championship football match from Norwich. Didn't quite pay off, but Liam Manning's men, they know how to play the game.
they've mixed their game up, haven't they? They've done really well away from home, and obviously they ran the look against Coventry. I think that'd be fair to argue, but I think they're a team that are still finding the way. They've signed a lot of players in the summer, so it's always going to be a case of it being a transition. A lot of attacking players as well. But what they do have is several players who are always going to be a danger. Josh Sargent is the best striker in the division. He's always going to be a threat. And my goodness, if you do leave space in behind your defenders, Josh Sargent's going to lap onto it. We see time and time again, he's really good at closing goalkeepers down and getting turning half chances into good chances. But what Lee Manning needs to do is he's got to find a blend that is consistent enough, because we've not seen that in games so far. It's not been complete control. It's been control at times, then they lose the way a little bit, or it's just been a complete onslaught against the opposition, as we saw against Coventry. So yeah, a team's still finding their feet, but if you're coming up against a team like Wrexham who ship chances, then this is a nice opportunity.
It feels like a good fixture, doesn't it?
Right.
Yeah, I think so. They have, although not so much in the game at your gaff, where they maybe were a little bit fortuitous to get the result, and maybe you can talk about the Coventry angle on that performance. I've liked Norwich at times in terms of the wide combination play on the right between Kellen Fisher and Ante Cernak, and on the left between Ben Clisene and Pape Diallo. So I think there's some positives for Liam Manning to take forward, as well as Kovacevic in goal, who's a very lively, animated figure, who's already made himself a bit of a cult hero with the Yellow Army. So, and then some solid defensive foundations as well. Jakob Medic in central defence alongside Harry Darling. Obviously, Kenny McLean in midfield has been very reliable. So, so Norwich have got some strong points from this season, but they just need to find that consistency, of course.
Absolutely. For the game at the CBS, Harry Darling unfortunately got caught out for the equaliser from Norwich perspective, because he made 8 blocks, I think. I think Norwich as a team made 15 blocks, which is the most they've made in any game in the last 20 years. That performance defensively, if they can replicate that, and I think Manning alluded to it, that's the basics you need to get results away from home and push up into the playoffs.
They wouldn't have done that last season, would they, Simon?
No,
as much as they played great football under Torup, you wouldn't have ever felt like they were on the back foot, but they really fought to try and keep the opposition out. So it's nice to see, although I'm sure luck played a significant part in that result for Norwich City, it's good to see that they have got those abilities in those last-ditch moments to grind out a result, and that's what they did.
Should be a more attacking display from them this weekend.
Absolutely.
Are we expecting a home win?
I am, yeah. Again, as I mentioned, that link-up play I've been impressed with. I think talking about Josh Sargent as one of the best strikers in the division, it's a recurring theme on this podcast, isn't it? But yeah, I think he's going to be a real threat. But again, it's those wide combinations that I think we're going to see a lot of against Wrexham.
Scoreline?
I'm going to go 3-0 to Norwich.
I'll go 3-1 Norwich.
Yeah, 2 or 3-0. I think Josh Sargent must be licking his lips. That Wrexham defender, absolutely. Last game we're going to preview. Actually, Monday night football we've got on the Championship. Millwall versus Watford. Should be a good game this. I think we should start with Watford, Justin, potentially here, because home defeat against Blackburn this weekend. Started the season with some reasonable results, but just faded away slightly in recent weeks.
Yeah, it's been a strange one. I saw a lot of Watford fans I wouldn't say discontent, but a little bit frustrated and maybe a little bit worried for Paolo Pezzolano. Obviously came in the summer, mainly because of Watford's habit of changing managers. But
it's been 5 games. It's about time, isn't it?
We've had one already, so usually it sparks another. But I think with Watford is they've had such a major change this summer, and they've recruited a lot of young players. It's always going to take a little bit of time to get them match ready in the Championship. It's a difficult league to come in, and we're seeing a lot of clubs faltering a little bit after a major summer of recruitment, and it's no different with Watford. And then you combine that with a manager who's new to the league, who's new in general. It's always going to be a bit difficult, but you never afforded time with Watford, and you are right, they have faded a little bit. Good result against Southampton just before the international break, but I think again what we're seeing is it's just a young team who are inexperienced in parts, and they're going to have those moments against Blackburn, for example. Raft of attacking quality in that Watford team, but they didn't really create anything.
I think the other thing about Watford is I think that Paolo Pezzolano played 4-4-2 against Blackburn, and I'm not sure that that's a formation that really suits the strengths of that squad, because if I think of Watford, I think of attacking midfielders and wide players that are very agile and can create things. Okay, Shakratadze is absent, but they've got Rocco Vata, they've got Nestor Kunda, who's been probably the signing of the season in the Championship, and he was only on the bench for Watford. I think you want players in those positions rather than the 4-4-2 that I'm not sure really suits them. So, so a bit of a rethink needed, perhaps.
And Millwall got that late point, didn't they, against Charlton? They seem to be doing very well kind of away from home in general. What do you think of them going into this home game? They should fancy this one, especially after what happened against Wrexham.
Yeah, exactly. It's one of them where even against Middlesbrough, to defeat flattered Borough a little bit. I thought Millwall were maybe good for at least a point, but Borough managed the game really well, as we've seen under Rob Edwards. With them, they've created a lot of chances and just not putting them away. It's a case with them. I'm not really surprised with the likes of Josh Coburn up front. I know I think he's there to get the best out of Ivanovic, who again, who's not quite hit the ground running as many would have expected going into the season. But with Millwall, it feels like it's a fine margin thing. I think if they go 1-0 ahead, it won't be long before they go 2-0 up, and the game will be managed in a very Millwall, Alex Neil way. So I think with them, they're very close to being a really good side. It's just taking a little bit of time.
With Millwall, I'd like to touch on Adomo Imaku, because one thing, again, we're talking about themes in football, and you mentioned it earlier, Justin, we're seeing quick, direct wingers kind of coming back into fashion. I think we're seeing it in the Premier League, and I think in the Championship, Adomo Imaku, what I love about him is that he just knocks the ball ahead of him and he runs onto it. And I think that commits opponents. And whether if that's in a transitional attack, you've obviously got that open space that he can exploit because he has got that pace. But I think even against low blocks, if you're taking people on, you can force the opposition back and you can get a bit more territory in a different way, and it can create certain angles. So Adomo Imaku on the left for Millwall, player I'm really excited about.
Score prediction, please, Gab.
I think I'm going to go 2-2.
I'm going to go for a 0-0.
I will go 1-1.
It's going to be a close game on Monday Night Football. And I'm also going to put you on the spot here as well, because we need to do our fourfold for Saturday 3 p.m. games between us. The fixtures are at the back of your little stat pack there. There's actually not that many games at 3 p.m. this weekend. We've already discussed Norwich against Wrexham, so I'll pick 2 fixtures and then we can go from there. I think we'll pick Norwich to beat Wrexham at home. It makes sense to back against Sheffield Wednesday given their squad right now. So I'll also pick Portsmouth at home to Sheffield Wednesday. Portsmouth are very good in that away game against Southampton. Couldn't quite get the 3 points. So Justin, could you add another one of those 3 p.m.s to the mix, please?
Go Sheffield United, Charlton. Go Sheffield United. Chris Wilder coming in. Homecoming. Big atmosphere at Bramhall Lane. Why not?
Okay. Sheffield United, I like it. Gab, have you picked out one for me, please?
I'm going to go with Norwich to beat Wrexham.
We've got them already, Gab. We need another one.
I wasn't listening, was I?
That's all right. We've got Norwich, we've got Portsmouth, and we've got Sheffield United right now.
I'm going to go with Southampton to win at Hull.
Okay. That's fine by me. That's fine. Why?
That bit. I think hopefully that combination play between Finn Azaz and Cameron Archer is going to start to come to fruition for Southampton. But also, I think they've got the options. They've got the options in that squad to change a game that isn't going their way, and I think that superior depth is going to come to the fore.
Absolutely. I want to know in the comments down below, if you like and subscribe for us, how do you think Chris Wilder's going to get on in his Sheffield United return? Please do make sure you stay tuned for our Leicester City versus Coventry preview coming on Friday. But thank you very much, Gab. Thank you, Justin. And we'll see you on Friday on The Sportsman Untitled.